Manchester City 2, Everton 0. Erling Haaland, masterclass. The only two shots on target were the only two shots scored. And Man City show their ruthless side, their dominant side, their deadly killer instincts to put themselves back top of the Premier League. Back top of the Premier League, back where they will feel they ultimately belong. The pressure now placed upon Liverpool, the pressure now placed upon Arsenal to respond in the 3 p.m. kickoff today for Liverpool and to respond Sunday afternoon against West Ham United for Arsenal. And if the truth be told, this is one of those games where at the end of the season, City may look back at it and think this was one of the games that was so crucial, so pivotal to them potentially winning or retaining their Premier League, doing this famous, never been seen before four-peat. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought there. Because this is one of those games where you look at it and think to yourself, it's hard. Everton are defending well. The crowd are quiet. The pace has been slowed down. They've rotated some players to help with their Champions League quest in the midweek. So Bernardo Silva's on the bench as an example. KDB is on the bench. Erling Haaland still hadn't really found his feet since returning, but he steps up. They step up again. They still find a way to do it. And it's why they're the best team in England. It's why they're the best team in the world. It's why they're so dangerous. It's why they're so ruthless. They just have the mentality to get it done. And as much as they have the ability, as much as they have the manager, as much as they have the tactics, the mental strength of this Manchester City team is absolutely astounding. And I also want to praise the City fans today. Not the noisiest stadium in the world, not the noisiest atmosphere that I've ever come across watching football, but there was no panic. 60 minutes, 65 minutes, 70 minutes into this game, there was a relaxed nature from these Manchester City fans. It was a relaxed kind of approach to this game, which enabled them, their players, to just continue to stay calm, continue to play their game, keep probing, wait for that opportunity. Now, Everton defended so well indeed, and you could argue they maybe deserve something for that defensive masterclass up until the 71st minute. But then the first bit of fortune that fell Manchester City's way, and they forced it really, Erling Haaland, it's an unstoppable shot, and it was game over. Everybody knew it was game over from that moment. A little counter-attack later in the game, KDB to the imperious Erling Haaland. Braithwaite, really good player. Brushed him aside, though. Switches it onto his left. Buries it. It's a brace for Haaland. Still the top goal scorer in the league, even though he hasn't scored since the end of November due to injury. 3 points from Manchester City. And the gauntlet laid down for their rivals. And look, Arsenal deserve praise this year. Arsenal are in the title race. Arsenal have shut up a lot of their rivals and the pundits that said last season was a bit of a fluke year. They won't be up near the top again. Liverpool, I think, have surprised everybody this season by putting themselves top of the league in and around New Year, winning more games than anybody thought. But Manchester City are the best team in England. Manchester City are the favourites. There's no getting away from that. And I think Arsenal fans and Liverpool fans, certainly Man United fans we're hoping for a mentality slip from this team. We're hoping, you know what? Maybe some of the new signings are not quite good enough. Maybe they're not hungry enough anymore. Maybe they just, they're 5% off their game because they're so bloated from their recent success. Not a chance. If Arsenal were going to win this league, if Liverpool are going to win this league, they are going to have to be phenomenal. They are going to have to be consistent. This City team are not going to throw it away. You're just going to have to be better than them. You're going to have to be better than City to beat them to the title. This is not going to be a case of their legs have run out. They don't want it anymore. You could tell from today's game, they are fighting tooth and nail to win every single trophy that they are in. That is 6 wins on the bounce now, which I think is also significant because you're talking about that now getting towards 7, 8, 9, 10. And often when it comes to Manchester City, Yeah, people talk about how many games they can win on the bounce, and it becomes there's no draws, there's no dropping of points. They drew 2-2 with Palace, and I look at two games in their last 6, which show why they're the best team. The Newcastle game where they were losing and being outplayed. They have started the game well, went 2-1 down, were being outplayed, didn't look like doing it, and then bang, bang, game changed. You then have the Brentford game. Although they were dominant and had the most amount of shots, if it goes in 1-0 at half time, and if Brentford could keep them out for the first 10, 15 minutes of the second half, it could be a different kettle of fish. But they keep plugging away, they keep trying, they keep doing these patterns of play, bang, they get themselves into it. Today was another one that you look at and say, 71 minutes into this game, they haven't even had a shot on target. Could Everton hang on? They took points away from them last year. But in all 3 of those matches, Manchester City have found a way, and it's why they're my favourites to win the league. It's why they're the most dangerous, most potent, most feared and intimidating team in world football. Now, it makes me sick to say it, but it's the ultimate truth. They are on the field of play. This team is absolutely majestic. It's frustrating, but it's the cold, hard facts of the matter. They are that damn good. Let's go to some of your comments here before I bring man like V out to have his say. Playdat says this is their era, and we are all fortunate to see this. Spurs fan Mark may cry, but I respect this Man City side so much. Look, I respect this City team. We will reassess that when they have their day in court, essentially, and the trial happens. Maybe we will change our minds, but until that point, they're an impeccably run club who have invested brilliantly, that have bought amazing talents, that have the best manager in the world, and they've developed it's vibranium strength. Now, I know it's not a real substance, but their mentality and their mental fortitude is as strong as vibranium. It's diamond-esque. It's so hard to break them. And even when they have a bad run, they have a bad result, they get through it. Phenomenal. And yeah, listen, you can't not praise lots of what they've done. The Mad Hatter says, bunch of clowns with your 115, so pathetic. Come with something else, is what the Mad Hatter's got to say to everybody disrespecting City today. You respect the 115. Listen, I think what Playdat's saying, and I'll defend one of our viewers here, he may change his mind if they're found guilty of all the charges. But until he sees evidence of it, he ain't getting. He's treating them as a team that's doing things correctly, and that's fair enough as well. Remember, if they're cleared or proven innocent, a lot of people are going to look really silly. You're all living in Pep Guardiola's world. I think everybody certainly is. Everybody is. This is what we do, Terry. Pep bringing on KDB and Walker. They changed the game. Alvarez was poor. Hopefully he will be back to his best form. Look, he's young. He's up and down. It's going to happen. I will say this, though. Mateus Nunes, I've heard people say it different ways. He ain't City level. I know the whole 1 year thing, and then you'll find somebody else. I'm telling you, just like I said about Calvin Phillips, there's no finding his level. He is not a City player. He's not of City standard in any capacity for me. And that's only because I hold your standards so high. And you saw it. You saw the difference when he came off. He's a good player. He's not a City player, especially when you need someone to move that needle. He's just not at the level, in my opinion. He's not there. And he could be a player you got. Listen, with Frankie de Jong being available in the summer, I think you cash him in. Imagine de Jong next to Rodri. Makes me sick. It's sickening. It really is. Talk about Gerard Branthwaite. Terry, he deserves to be called up for England. He's better than Maguire. Look, listen, I know he got bodied by Erling Haaland for the goal, but Erling Haaland does that to a lot of people. Brathwaite is excellent. He looks a proper player. He's good with the ball at his feet. He's cool. He's calm. He's collected. Excellent performance from him, even though he was on the losing team. And there's a real player in there. I think that Everton won't be holding on to him for too long. Against the better team in the final third, City drop points here. Everton are crap. That's some halftime hooks. Listen, potentially, if they played that way away at Man United, United beat them. They played like this away at Anfield. Liverpool beat them. They played like this at home against Arsenal. Arsenal can beat them. However, are those teams going to sit back and be as defensive, be as negative? No. So I think the game would play out differently. in that regard. But you're right. If they play against better teams and don't create shots on goal, they'll come a cropper. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. Terry Haaland has been injured for 3 months and still top goal scorer, but that's because he's the best number 9 finisher in the world. He's the best finisher in the world right now. No one's better at scoring goals on planet Earth than Erling Haaland. So yeah, without trying to sound, that's it. That's why the man's an absolute machine. An absolute machine. V's on the show with me now. Welcome back to the Terrace, bro. Congrats on the win. What you saying, brother?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm feeling good about this win. Early mornings, they can always be a little jammy. Well, the early mornings for me, the early games for you guys out there. But no, I'm happy with the performance. 100%. Like Pep deciding to sit KDB and Silva, like that's an impressive bench when you really think about it. So I was happy with how they played. We expected Everton to play low block and defensive and be sound because, again, they're playing away at the Etihad. So it was going to be a difficult game. All in all, we just have to play these games one game at a time because we know it's going to be a 3-horse race. Liverpool ain't going anywhere despite playing terribly against Arsenal. And Arsenal showed that they're legit and that they're going to be fierce to the very end, I think, this season, running from last season, with how they performed against Liverpool. So we just need to get these wins. And if Pep can play these games and not have the strongest 11 every time, I think that's going to be great rotation for us to be ready when the games get so congested, because it's going to be Champions League, FA Cup, league games. So I'm happy with what I saw, man. And Haaland, I think you mentioned it earlier. He hasn't been playing over a month plus. I don't know how many games it registered, but the guy is still the top goal scorer. Like it's absolutely crazy. I think it's 38 games, 35 goals, something ridiculous like that. So man's nasty, and we just need to feed the big man. Just feed the big man. And KDB is the only guy that releases the passes early and gives him a chance to get onto them. Everyone else, unfortunately, holds the ball a little too long. And credit to KDB because no one has the skill set. But if we just release the ball more, especially in this game before KDB came on, Haaland could get on those chances or make it difficult for defenses. When we're ready and we're getting there, we're going to be unstoppable. Thanks for the credit, saying we're the best in the world right now, but we're not playing at our best, and that's scary.
Yeah, look, I think from my sort of perspective, I kind of look at the situation and just think to myself, look, you are the best team, and I still think there's levels within it. You are right about the Haaland situation. In the last game I watched against Brentford, first half today, there's times he's making runs and the players on the ball just don't even think about making the pass. They don't have the vision to make that pass. Foden would if he was the one in possession, but nobody else does. And I think that, Doku was trying his best today. It just wasn't quite coming off for him, but he was nice and direct. But the amount of times he's making those runs and the ball isn't coming, I think if you guys are countering in the second half for his second goal, and that isn't KDB on the ball, they play the more simple pass out to, I think it might have been Grealish, who was wide on the left. The pass goes out to whoever's on the left because it's simpler, it's easier than maintaining possession. And I actually saw Rants and Bants. I saw a reel of his today where he was talking about Bruno Fernandes and KDB and essentially saying they're not good footballers. They just spam the ball into areas looking for assists. They're chasing stats. They're chasing stats as opposed to trying to play football because their pass completion rates often like low 80s, high 70s. And I look at it and think, but I understand the analysis, but where I politely disagree is KDB wasn't looking to get an assist today. He was looking for you guys to score a goal and kill the game off. It just so happens that you get an assist. And what you didn't have in that first half was somebody in possession who was consistently trying to break the lines. Everything was very simple. Everything was to feet. Everything enabled Everton to sit in their low block and be hard to break down. KDB comes on, and I know your first goal doesn't directly happen from a KDB situation, but it gets teams nervous because they know suddenly there's going to be crosses and balls. I wouldn't use the word spamming. I think that it's disrespectful to his skill set. They know there's going to be passes being surgically placed in dangerous areas of the box, and that's what KDB brings. As great as he is on the ball, as great as he is with his skill set, that ability to find people in dangerous areas is a world-class talent which is finite. It's hard to find.
So this is the thing, and respect to Rants, but the comparison between Bruno and KDB, first of all, should never be done because the approach to the game is very different. KDB, again, it's not a spamming, it's not volume. It's seeing that a release pass here puts the defense under pressure. So it's not like he's just winging it. It's not like he's just putting it into space. He sees a run by the player and he puts it there. Now, when it comes down to other players doing something like KDB, I'm not going to see it. I'm not going to see it. And I've been blessed. I've been blessed to have amazing midfielders, but I haven't seen anyone release passes like KDB. So I don't expect it from anyone else, even when we have a Rodri or a Silva or in Foden in the middle. And to start the game, we had Alvarez. That's not his skill set. Alvarez has an amazing nose for goal, and I think he plays well in terms of tandem, but he's not going to be creative that way. So I'm not going to kill him for it because I think Pep, again, he's putting these players into not their best positions to see whether they can deliver on what he's asking. Foden, we've already seen it. Foden's better centrally, but he played out wide today, and obviously that gave Bernardo Silva some rest. We didn't play Grealish. So I think Pep is doing the rotation, and he's putting players not in the best not in the best positions for them, but the best case for the team. What I want from KDB is exactly what he's doing. If rivals want to say he's just the numbers guy, he spams, cool. I want that quality at my team.
Mate, I agree with you, right? So listen, I think KDB is better than Bruno. There was a time where, I was pushing the Bruno agenda and saying, a bit of that was rivalry. A bit of that was the numbers were just so amazing. But they're both similar in the sense of you can call it spamming in the numbers game. And that's actually what Halftime Hooks here says is KDB is definitely volume, similar to Trent. He just has quality in his volume. But that's just it. In my team, I want there to be a player or two who are attempting through balls and crosses and dinked passes and whatever phrases you want to use, attempting to break a line and put the ball into a goal-scoring position. I want someone that's attempting that regularly. If you don't, then what you get, if you don't have someone that does that, you end up like the back-end era of Arsene Wenger's Arsenal, where you're trying to pass the ball into the back of the net. Right. When you're trying to pass the ball into the back of the net and you're actually not creating those gilt-edged chances. It's like, we're going to wait for the most opportune moment to square the ball so it's a tap-in. But that isn't always possible. Sometimes do you know what? I'm 25 yards away. I could knock that ball into that channel. It gets cut back and there could be a tap-in on. It's more direct. It's a little bit uglier. I'm not saying Pep's football's ugly. It's a little bit uglier when you do it when the first 3 or 4 don't come off. Yeah. You've got to play that volumes game, especially when you're up against a low block, especially when everybody's behind the ball. So I don't really understand why there is a criticism of what KDB, what Trent Alexander-Arnold, what Bruno Fernandes does. And by the way, I think if Bruno 5 years ago joined City or joined Liverpool or a team that's brilliant, I don't think he'd be as disliked as he is now and would have delivered even more. But listen, as I got a lot of respect for Rants. I agree with a lot of his football takes. He's a nice guy as well. I've met him a number of occasions, but I see a lot of people talk about, KDB just spams it into the box. I sort of sit there and think, I'm so glad this generation weren't around for proper wingers because their job was to get to the byline and cross it into the box. Not once in the history of football was David Beckham considered a spammer who got to the byline and crossed the ball into the box. It's part of your job. It's like saying, it's like having a go at a goalkeeper that makes saves. It's just his job. He's meant to do it. And do you know how you know it's KDB's job? Because if a player was attempting all those crosses and passes and it wasn't part of Pep's plan, you'd be dragged off the pitch. Pep wouldn't play you. Pep wouldn't play you. So it's. I understand the analysis, but I think it's misunderstood.
And it's too simplistic. It's too simplistic because there's also the level of crosses that he makes, like the height of the ball, where he's placing it, far post, near post. Like it's not just I'm just putting it up there and see whether a player can get onto it. But I want to speak earlier when you mentioned Doku. Like Doku's figuring it out, but how he attacks the defender, I'm all for that because that's creating opportunities where another defender either has to shift position or now you have a threat where you need to find where Haaland is or find where the far post is and cover up. Yeah, the final delivery isn't quite there, but the fact that he's getting there, we need that. And again, that's the difference between what we get from a Grealish and what we get from a Doku. I want both players because I need that adjustment that Pep can do depending on how we're being defended against. But Doku's skill set and his trickery, there's a reason why in the market we're going out and we're getting some wingers with pace and a little bit of that shiftiness, because we need that against certain defenses. This block today, we would have been so frustrated had it been Jack, I believe, how the game started, because there wouldn't have been KDB on that pitch either. So Jack, Alvarez, and Haaland kind of playing within this low block, I think we would have been even more frustrated because Jack doesn't have that trickery. The dynamic of Doku, much needed. He's a good player. He just needs a little more time.
Yeah, I think he's a sensational player. And listen, people don't think I rate Jack Grealish. I know I gave him a nickname of Luke Chadwick. It was a bit of a joke. It's not serious. I think he's a tremendously talented footballer. But I look at Phil Foden, and I think Phil Foden is ahead of him because the outputs are there and more consistent. I look at Doku, and I think both Foden and Doku, Mahrez when he was there, for me, debunk the myth that when Grealish is on the pitch, he's told to not be direct, to not take people on, to not try and score an assist, but to stay wide and to create space for others. And the reason I don't believe that to be the true case, in certain times of the game, he'll do that. Of course he will. But for the idea for that to be the overarching main tactic, and that's why it's okay for his numbers to be so low, I've always pushed back against that. Because if that was the case, why is he only asking Jack Grealish to do it, but then not when the other guys are on the pitch? Now, I understand if you're bringing these guys on for Jack late, they're going to be more direct. But when they start the games, they're as direct. And for me, that's where Grealish, for me, is just, listen, he's a phenomenally talented footballer who's got a lot of great assets that have helped your club. But I look at Doku, I look at Foden, the way they play, and I just think if you can find a way where you've got those guys on either side, or you add somebody else onto that right-hand side in the summer, that directness is so important for Haaland, because you'll find eventually what Doku's going to start doing is finding Haaland with these cutbacks, and then it's just even more goals coming in,
100%. And like, I also wanted to, I tweeted this. I said, listen, we're seeing what life might be like without KDB and Bernardo Silva, because they didn't start today, and it's not looking good, guys. Like, it's not looking good if this is how we're going to be set up without a KDB and Bernardo Silva. I don't think that would be the case. I think Foden would be brought centrally, but this game in particular against teams that are going to defend like this, we showed why. Those players have been so important. Rodri, KDB, Silva. Like, this is an era where I've heard you in the past talk about the players that have been so impactful. I'm gonna hold my hand up and be like, this has been some of the best, most consistent football I've ever seen because of KDB, Silva, and Rodri in that team. And we're not Rodri FC, don't get me wrong, but when we didn't have those players, in particular, when we had to face like Arsenal or early in the season and things of that nature, when we don't have that quality, we're not going to be as good as some of the other teams like Liverpool.
And the thing is, me and Lee Gunner have had this conversation before. For instance, right now, how many players are there that can do what KDB does and do what Bernardo Silva does? Generally in the world, how many midfielders do you know are as consistent, as strong, have the dictatorship skills and creativity skills of those two? Like, generally, how many? Not to name them, but how many players are at that level in your opinion in the world?
If a player like KDB, I'd actually say there's none. A player like Silva, 2, maybe 3.
And I agree. It's always going to be 1 or 2 at that level. So when you have a number of players of that ilk, when they leave, sometimes it's just about perfect timing or bad timing. So sometimes if players of that equal quality are already in big contracts at big clubs, you're not getting anybody as good. Sometimes you have an individual that's leaving, and your timing for Haaland was perfect because Aguero leaves, you try to get Kane, doesn't happen, then you get Erling Haaland. If, for instance, for whatever reason, you'd have got Harry Kane. Now, Harry Kane would still be scoring a lot of goals, there's no doubt, but you wouldn't have him. The point is that sometimes it's just about the timing. So when you lose Bernardo Silva and KDB, say it is this summer for one reason or another, there is a high probability chance that whoever comes in isn't going to be as good. Therefore, you won't be as good. And that isn't because of bad recruiting or bad planning. That's simply because you built a team with some of the best players in the world. So the only way after that is down for a while until, and even the great Real Madrid teams, Liverpool teams, Bayern Munich teams, that's why there's always ebbs and flows in how good you are. And it's why you've got to enjoy every single season when you're winning, every single goal, every single moment, because there will be a dip. Now, I'm not saying the dip is going to be you're going to fall down to 8th in the league, but the dip might just be second a few times and whatever else it may be. It's really hard when absolute superstars leave your football club, especially now with so many clubs having money and even the smaller clubs having cash. They don't need to let everybody go. I think it was maybe easier in the 70s, 80s, 90s, where the top 3 or 4 teams in the world could just go, right, we're losing this guy, we're going to go and buy the of that level. It was a lot easier, I think. So there's a super chat here from Akash that says Branthwaite is an excellent prospect. Get him moved to Man United and bring him to Old Trafford. City weren't at their best today, but again, KDB proving the difference. I agree with all parts of that. I think Braithwaite is an excellent prospect, but you guys, how do you think the response will be now from Liverpool and Liverpool this weekend? Liverpool and Arsenal, sorry, this weekend.
Liverpool have probably the best matchup to face after a poor loss to Arsenal. They're playing Burnley, and shout out to my man Company, but I think Liverpool are going to have the response that they want. It'll erase the poor performance that they had against Arsenal. Arsenal in particular, that's going to be a very important game, but I think they know that they can't have a win. They can't bring themselves back into the title race contention and then drop off and have a loss. So I think both teams get a win, and I think it's going to be like that until well, you know what? Liverpool have the easier fixture list overall, but they're in Europa playing on those Thursdays. So it is going to be interesting how both or all managers manage player rotation and who decides to sacrifice what. Arsenal don't. They've got Champions League, so they don't really have to make too many decisions. But there's going to be a time where Pep's going to have to decide FA Cup, League, Champions League. What am I kind of prioritizing based off of this week? And the same goes for Liverpool in their Europa, FA Cup, and league play.
Yeah, it's going to be it's certainly going to be an interesting one. It really, really is. And I think we're in for one hell of a title race. And I kind of wanted City to drop points today, not even from a United point perspective, purely because I think it makes the title race even more exciting. What do you guys think of the blue cards coming into the game?
Oh, trash. Change the color, first of all, because blue is a sign of respect. Blue should never be penalized or a sign of anything going wrong. So change the color of the card, first of all. Make that orange or something like that. And then the card change. It's terrible. I think it's putting too much subjective decision making in the hands of the ref. It's because, again, the refs don't see everything. The refs make mistakes, and now they're supposed to try and judge what's cynical. They're trying and judge what's dissent.
Yeah, do you know what's interesting for me? 2 things in football that annoy me is cynical fouls on counter attacks and time wasting. You don't need to bring cards in; just give worse punishments. So, for instance, this afternoon, if Burnley break on Liverpool, so the halfway line, it's 3 versus 2, and the midfielder drags a player down, you just get a penalty. Or if you time waste, you got 15 seconds to take a goal kick. If you're more than 15 seconds, the opposing team gets a penalty. You would instantly stop people because there would be no advantage to it. So if you want to get rid of those things, you just make the punishment so harsh that the penalty isn't worth the crime. The problem is, even with the 10-minute sin bin, a lot of teams might go, you know what, there's 15 minutes left. I still think stopping that counter attack is worth sitting on the sin bin for 10 minutes. So if you genuinely want to eradicate those crimes from the game, and I look at them, I hate them. I honestly despise those kind of. Another part of it is you've got to make the punishment far more potent, so that pulling someone on a counter attack, it's that there's still more chance they score if you pull them down than if you don't. That way, you would stop it. You would stop time wasting if the opponents got an instant penalty. Straight away, you'd stop a time wasting in 1 week.
I hear the severity. I hear the severity of what you're saying. The only thing with this whole time wasting too is now you're gonna get people in the stands literally counting down. Like they're gonna be looking at their watch. And it's gonna be ridiculous. But I don't like this card. This where the game's kind of going this way. And I get it's been done in lower leagues, but it's, again, if we're already complaining about the decisions that the refs are making, you're giving them something else to decide on, and it's not an eye in the sky. It's not like there's an overall VAR that's monitoring the pitch and catching everything. How is the ref going to maybe catch one player versus another, or in a case where 3 players act up? How are you going to judge the severity of them.
Yeah. Well, if you get 3-player shout, I totally agree. So I view it as I want those things gone because I think it would make the game more exciting with less time wasting, more counterattacks. But don't start taking. I've been thinking about it the last 24 hours or so. Don't take people off the pitch. Just make the penalties literally a penalty, and you'll eradicate those elements of the game instantly. But the way people view it, the reason you drag someone down now on a counter attack is just taking a yellow card and a free kick from the halfway line is far less of a problem than what that counter attack may lead to. But of course, if I told you now you could have a counter attack or a penalty, you're going to pick a counter attack. You're going to pick a penalty. So suddenly it goes, and what you would get is a more free flowing, open game. There'd be less time wasting, but again, they don't really they want to muddy the water rather than not. There we go. But look, bro, I know there's other games on now that everybody wants to jump into. I want to thank all of our viewers for coming on, having their say. Please hit the like button before you leave. Always a pleasure to speak, V. Take care. Goodbye. God bless, and I'll speak to you all soon. Peace.